Some ballads came from real love, some came from real heartbreak, and some carried a much heavier story behind the beautiful voice singing them struggles with money, addiction, or loss that most people listening never knew about.
Tell me, have you seen her?
This is R&B Pulse Track, and today we're counting down 10 unforgettable R&B ballads from the 1960s and 70s, the songs that defined an era, and the rise and fall behind them. Stay till the end. Number 1 will hit differently once you know the full story. Number 10, the Isley Brothers, This Old Heart of Mine. Picture a song so good it takes two separate countries, years apart, to finally recognize it. That's exactly what happened here. Released on Motown's Tamla label in 1966, This Old Heart of Mine only reached modest chart success in America, a solid hit, but not the massive crossover moment the label had hoped for. The lush, string-laden production and the brothers' layered harmonies felt ahead of their time for U.S. radio. Then, something unexpected happened. 2 years later, British DJs and the emerging Northern soul scene rediscovered the record, and it exploded in the UK, climbing all the way to the top 3 on the British charts in 1968, a bigger hit there than it had ever been at home. Even now, many casual American fans associate the Isley Brothers almost entirely with their later funk rock era. This tender, heartbroken ballad quietly became a bigger phenomenon overseas than in the country that made it. A strange twist that soul historians still bring up today. Number 9, Etta James, At Last. Picture a song about finally finding real love, recorded by a woman whose own life was anything but settled. That contrast is what makes this one so powerful. Etta James recorded At Last for Chess Records in 1960, an old 1940s ballad she transformed completely with her aching, powerful voice. It became her signature song and, decades later, was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame.
Come along.
Here's what most casual fans don't know. By the time she recorded it, James was already struggling with heroin addiction, a battle that would follow her for the next 2 decades and, by her own account, nearly destroy her career entirely. Even with the song becoming an eternal wedding staple, played at everything from prom nights to a presidential inauguration, James herself spent years locked in a much darker story just to survive proof that the most triumphant-sounding love songs don't always come from the most triumphant places. Number 8, Sam and Dave, When Something Is Wrong with My Baby.
Something's wrong.
Picture 2 of the most explosive performers in soul music, known for shouting and stomping through up-tempo hits, suddenly slowing everything down to a whisper. That shift alone makes this one stand out. Written by the legendary Stack songwriting team of Isaac Hayes and David Porter in 1967, the song was reportedly inspired partly by Porter's own troubled marriage and his private fantasies about what real, uncomplicated love would actually feel like. It became a top 5 R&B hit, though a modest one compared to the duo's explosive up-tempo classics like Soul Man, released later that same year. Even though it's one of Sam and Dave's most emotionally rich recordings, it often gets buried today under the much bigger legacy of Soul Man and Hold On, I'm Comin'. Most casual fans know Sam and Dave as pure, high-energy shouters and never hear the quiet, aching side of the duo this song reveals. Number 7, The Chi-Lites, Have You Seen Her?
I see her face everywhere I go on the street.
Picture a man so heartbroken he can't even bring himself to sing. At first he just talks, quietly, about the woman who left him. That spoken word opening is what makes this song unforgettable.
We have seen her. Oh, she left
Written by lead singer Eugene Record and songwriter Barbara Acklin in 1971, the pair had actually written an early version of the song years earlier, but shelved it, thinking it was too long and unusual to record.
To having someone to lean on.
It took Isaac Hayes' genre-changing spoken word intros on his own 1969 album to convince Record and Acklin the format could actually work. When they finally recorded it, Have You Seen Her became the Chi Light's first R&B #1 and a massive international hit, reaching the top 3 in both the US and the UK. Even with that success, the label almost missed it entirely. Brunswick Records released 3 other singles from the album first, only turning to Have You Seen Her after R&B radio stations started playing it off the album on their own. Number 6. The Spinners, I'll Be Around. Picture a group that had already spent 17 years chasing a real hit, getting dropped by Motown right after their biggest song, and finally landing at a new label only for their next single's B-side to become the actual hit. Producer Tom Bell wrote the music for I'll Be Around in about 40 minutes in June 1972, then scrambled through the Sigma sound offices looking for someone to write lyrics on short notice. He found songwriter Phil Hurt, who delivered the finished words the very next day. The song was originally released as the B-side to How Could I Let You Get Away? Radio DJs had other plans, flipping the single over almost immediately and pushing I'll Be Around to #1 on the R&B chart. Even though it became the Spinners' first million-selling single, the fact that it almost stayed buried on the back of a 45 as an afterthought is a detail most fans never learn, one accidental discovery away from being forgotten entirely. We're right at the halfway point of 10 unforgettable R&B ballads from the 1960s and 70s, and the stories only get more powerful from here. If this kind of real soul history means something to you, subscribe to R&B Pulse Track. We're building a home for the ballads that heal and the stories that tell the truth behind them. Now, let's get back to the countdown. The next 5 songs carry some of the heaviest stories on this entire list. Number 5, Luther Ingram, If Loving You Is Wrong, I Don't Want to Be Right. Picture a song about loving someone you know you shouldn't be with and loving them anyway, without apology. That's the entire emotional core of this record. Written by Stax songwriters, Homer Banks, Carl Hampton, and Raymond Jackson, the song was actually first recorded as an up-tempo track by the girl group The Emotions. But Stax decided the subject matter, an open ode to infidelity, was too risky for a group marketed to a younger audience.
Your friends tell you it's no future.
The tape sat unused for years until singer Luther Ingram, whose career had stalled after one modest hit, heard it and slowed it down into the aching soul ballad that became his signature song, topping the R&B chart for 4 weeks in 1972.
Being without you, I'd rather live a wrongdoing life.
Even with that massive success, the song's frank subject matter caused quiet unease among some listeners and radio programmers of the era. As one Stax colleague later put it, it made you believe the wrong relationship might still be worth staying in, powerful and controversial in equal measure. Number 4, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes featuring Teddy Pendergrass, If You Don't Know Me By Now. Picture a group that had been grinding since the mid-1950s with only minor regional hits, finally finding their voice through a young drummer nobody expected to become their frontman. Written by the legendary Philadelphia team of Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff, the song was actually intended first for Patti LaBelle's group, LaBelle, but they never recorded it. and Gamble and Huff eventually gave it to Harold Melvin's group instead. By that point, Melvin had promoted his touring drummer, Teddy Pendergrass, to lead vocalist after the group's previous singer quit. Pendergrass's gospel-honed, aching delivery turned the song into the group's very first hit, topping the R&B chart and reaching number 3 on the pop chart in 1972. Even with that breakthrough launching one of the most celebrated runs in Philadelphia soul history, tension over billing and credit between Melvin and his newly spotlighted lead singer quietly built for years, eventually leading Pendergrass to walk away entirely for a solo career in 1976. Number 3, Bill Withers' Ain't No Sunshine.
Ain't no sunshine.
Picture a 31-year-old man still clocking in at a factory, making toilet seats for airplanes, unsure if music would ever actually become his real career.
Alone, but ain't no sunshine when she's
Bill Withers wrote Ain't No Sunshine after watching the film Days of Wine and Roses, reflecting on 2 alcoholic characters who kept returning to something that clearly wasn't good for them. During recording, he ran out of lyrics for the bridge and simply repeated the phrase, I know, 26 times as a placeholder.
I knew.
The session musicians loved it so much they convinced him to leave it exactly as it was. Released in 1971, the unfinished-sounding bridge became one of the most recognizable parts of the entire song, and it reached number 3 on the pop chart. Even after the song went gold, Withers kept his factory job for a while longer, wary that the music business might not last. The record company eventually gave him a golden toilet seat to mark the milestone, a strange, funny detail behind one of the most quietly devastating ballads of the decade. Number 2, Roberta Flack, Killing Me Softly with his song. Picture a young singer named Lori Lieberman, moved to tears watching Don McLean perform at a small Los Angeles club in 1971, scribbling emotional notes on a napkin that would eventually become one of the most iconic songs in music history, without her name ever appearing as a writer.
Killing me softly with this song.
Lieberman brought her experience to her manager and songwriting partners, Norman Gimbel and Charles Fox, who built the finished lyrics and music around her account. Lieberman recorded the original version first in 1972, but it barely registered on the charts.
As if I wasn't there.
Roberta Flack heard Lieberman's version while flying between cities and knew immediately she needed to record it herself. Her 1973 version became a massive number 1 hit and won a Grammy for Best Pop Vocal Performance. Even with that historic success, Lieberman never received songwriting credit for the experience that inspired the entire song, and disputes over the story's true origin continued publicly for decades. One of the most beloved ballads of the 1970s carries a quiet authorship controversy most casual fans never hear about. Number 1, Minnie Riperton, Lovin' You. Picture a mother singing a gentle lullaby to distract her baby daughter so she and her husband could have a few quiet moments together, never once intending for the world to hear it. That's exactly how Lovin' You began. Minnie Riperton and her husband, Richard Rudolph, wrote the melody years earlier simply to soothe their infant daughter, Maya. Riperton wasn't even actively pursuing music at the time. She'd largely stepped away to raise her young family. When Epic Records gave her one more chance after 3 earlier singles failed to chart, her husband convinced them to release this one instead. It became her only major hit, reaching number 1 in 1975 and showcasing her extraordinary 5-octave range, including notes in the rare whistle register few singers can ever reach.
la la, doo doo doo.
Here's the part that makes it unforgettable. Just 9 months after the song hit #1, Riperton was diagnosed with breast cancer. She continued performing and advocating publicly even as the illness progressed, and she died in 1979 at just 31 years old. The daughter she once sang to sleep, Maya Rudolph, grew up to become a celebrated actress and comedian carrying her mother's voice, and this song with her for the rest of her life.